I'm Jim.
And I'm David.
And this is the Practical Guitarist Podcast.
The podcast for people who eat, sleep, and breathe guitar. It's the moment you've all been waiting for. Rules to our Great Lakes Guitar Pickup Giveaway. In cooperation with Great Lakes Guitar Pickups, we've got free pickups to give away. Jim and I will be demoing the pickups as long as our promotion goes on for it, and it's supposed to last for an entire year. Make sure you're watching and sharing the videos with interested friends. I mean, who couldn't use a set of killer guitar pickups, right? So here's how it's going to work. First, on February 11th, a special word will be posted on Great Lakes Guitar Pickups Facebook page. A second word or phrase will be placed randomly within the episode of the Practical Guitarist podcast that is released on February 11th. Combine both of these words and send us an email with them. All who respond with both words will be entered into the drawing. Also, once you win, don't bother entering again, as you will not be eligible going forward. Make sure you tell your friends. Hi, Jim.
Hi, David.
Aren't you glad my technical difficulties are over with?
Take two.
Yeah, take two. So Jim and I are trying something new tonight. We got these things around our neck. Interesting things. They make noises, and yes. I think we're all united by these noises in some way or another.
I'm hoping that's why everybody's here.
Yeah,
because they want to make noise with these things.
Yeah, that whole thing.
Yeah.
So, obviously, Jim and I are electric guitar players. If you didn't know, you're probably listening to the wrong podcast at this point.
Yeah, if you were looking for the fishing podcast, that's over on the other one.
Yes.
The other
later in this episode, there will be a secret word. There will be a secret phrase, and it will be inserted, and it will be obvious. And it will probably be inserted just like random mid-sentence, maybe something like that.
It'll sound like a bleep that David just throws in there.
Yeah, because that's what it's going to be. Anyway, so if you hear this secret word, you can go over to Nick Bonger's page, Great Lakes Guitar Pickups on Facebook. Yep. Join the page, and he will have posted another secret word, and you can combine these two secret words to form a phrase, and you can email that phrase to the Practical Guitarist email address, which is questions@practicalguitarist.com, to enter yourself and a chance to win the pickups that Jim actually has in the guitar he's playing right now.
Oh crap! I'm not playing that guitar.
No,
I should probably put that guitar.
No,
on,
you're
right?
not. I'm kidding. He's playing his SG right now, but the pickups in that guitar actually probably sound better than the pickups in his SG. He'll never admit that.
I love my SG. There is love. Can you feel the love
Sometimes
tonight?
You just gotta look at it and you gotta say, you know what, the guitar's fine as is, and I'm not gonna mess with it.
And that's really, when I bought this SG, I've thought, oh, I need it. No. I have the guitars I like, and in all honesty, every time I look at another guitar, it's like that meme where that guy's
the guy's like turning around looking. He's with his girlfriend, but he's looking at the other girl. Yeah.
Yep. That's me.
Well, and Jim has confessed that he has thought about selling this guitar last week.
And the truth is, I have not done it.
No, but you thought about it.
I did.
And by the Roman Catholic Church's definition, that means you did it.
That's right. What's funny is, so every time I think about it, this is what you should do if you think about selling a guitar, because we've all got that, oh, I never should have let it go thing.
Yeah.
Pick it up and play it. That's what fixed it for me, was just picking it up and playing it and going, yeah, I'm not getting rid of that. Why would I get rid of that?
Yeah. So the reason why Jim and I have decided to bring guitars onto the show this evening, and probably we'll do this again in the future at some point, is more or less to, number one, podcasting is the perfect format for anything music related, because guess what? It's audio.
That's right.
Number two is we're going to be talking about some playing things that we thought that it would be easier to demonstrate, or at least to play back some things that we know relate to the topic tonight, than it would be to try and discuss and describe them.
So this week's topic for playing guitars is rhythm.
Groove. I would say groove. I mean, rhythm is part of grit, certainly.
Yes.
Other thing, before we get started, I wanted to go through what Jim and I are actually playing through. I've got my Ash S500 from GNL here, Maple Neck, plugged into my Helix on the floor, and that's doing pretty much everything for me. And I've got that all running into the Steinberg UR22, so I got 2 inputs, a microphone and that. Jim?
Yep. And I'm running a 2017 SG Standard into a Pod HD 500X into the Boss Katana. It's in the clean channels. It's pretty much not doing anything to the sound. It's just putting it out to.
He's just bleeding it so I can hear it into the microphone.
Yes.
So that's basically
that's
what
really
it is.
Because it's going into the clean channel with everything set at 12 o'clock.
Just a personal reminder, we got to be real careful not to play at the same time as we're talking.
Yes. and we can't really play, unfortunately, because of the way we're doing things, we'll probably want to play at the same time. Because it'll kind of throw off timing. And because I would try to sync with him and it wouldn't sound good at all. Because we've got about almost a second and a half delay between us.
Yeah, there's probably close to it. Yeah, maybe longer.
Yeah.
But anyway, so one thing I did want to talk about, since we're both running through modeling gear, I put a survey in the group because I knew we were actually going to do this tonight.
Yeah.
And I put a survey in the group talking about modeling, and the reason I did this was I was really, really interested in how much the guitar community has changed as of late, and the opinions of specifically modeling equipment. I mean, right now, the 3 big things that I see discussed all over the internet, and I don't care whether you're on the gear page or corksniffers.com, you'll see the Axe-Fx, the Helix, and the Kemper come up.
That's right.
And of course, there are different iterations of each of these products.
That's right.
But basically Axe-Fx, Helix, and Kemper, right? So I got to thinking, and I was like, really, I had good experiences with older modeling equipment, going pretty far back, actually. Talking about, you're playing the HD 500, that's previous generation, but to go even further back to the Pod XT, I never played my live, but I did use a modeling amp that was based on the models in the Pod XT.
I think we both used Flextones in the past.
Yeah, that was the Flextone 3XL is what I was talking about. And then, of course, everybody's had a Zoom 505, it seems, and I didn't have good experiences with that. But, I mean, the point is I want to draw a distinction between consumer modeling technology and what has been used historically by professionals. And I think the price point used to be really a small difference. Like, your consumer modeling stuff was like $150 and under, and then everything else was like $200 and up. Now it seems like everything is like $1,000 and up for professional level.
For modeling,
So it's an interesting thing. So I want to kind of go through the results like really briefly, and I say like 8 out of the, I think there was 20 people who answered the survey. 8 out of the 20 said that they had a positive modeling experience.
Wow.
6 out of them said they were going direct to the board. Interestingly enough, negative experiences. We had 3 out of the group. One of which also answered that his modeling experience was positive, which was interesting. So in other words, he'd had negative and positive experiences. That's what I'm taking that to mean. And then only 5 of the, actually there was more than 8 people. There was 11 people, and only 5 people have used the big 3 pro modelers that are out there right now: the Axe-Fx, the Helix, or the Kemper. And what's interesting is that it seems like there's still people out there that have never touched a modeler. We've got 2 respondents that said that.
Wow.
And a lot of the people who were basing their experiences and answering the survey have said that the modeler I used live was older, or when I did it, it was 3 years ago or more. So it's just interesting. I think I think that people are more accepting of the technology now, as referenced by the 11 people who said that they had a positive experience and that they had gone direct to board.
Right.
I've used like the gamut, from the Digitech RP line all the way up to, I'm using the Helix now. I haven't used that live. But the point is that I think you can have good experiences. I just don't think so. Like, I was having a conversation again with Jeff Biazadecki of Good Time Music, and he's a devout like tube amp guy, but even he admits he kind of romanticizes them. And the other thing is, like, if you got them, you would really rather use them. But he also understands that, silent stages are becoming a thing, and like going into bars and stuff now more frequently, people are asking like, can you turn down and that kind of stuff. I think modelers have a place. They're a necessary tool for certain jobs, and we're going to continue to see more of this stuff. I think we might hold the survey again in a couple of years, or we might do it next year, and just see how the changes
how the times they are changing.
Yeah, because I think it would be interesting to kind of track, what people's opinions and estimates are on modeling technology. So
my newest modeling technology experience has been, I had to get rid of the TC Electronic. I had some software issues that were happening, and I just didn't want to have to go through.
Plus, it was just plain fucking hard to use.
Yeah, it was really hard to menu through it. But that hasn't changed a lot. I got to be honest with you. The HD500X interface, which obviously is not that young. What is that? 2007? No.
It was like 7 or 8 years old, 9 years old.
Yeah, it's about. That's right. It's about 2012. I think we found out 2011, 2012.
Yeah, we went and looked back, and it was quite a few years old.
So. The reason I'm using this right now is just as a stopgap measure until I move further and figure out what's going on. So obviously I'm working with two bands, and it's kind of got to do the floor modeling thing, and it's got to do the floor pedaling thing, and that's two different things. And Dave was helping me work through the pedal side of it, because the modeling side of it isn't too bad, but the pedaling side of it is just crazy for me. Anyway. So what I found is this is what I've been seeing that is the most difficult thing that comes to it. Hearing yourself and responding and getting a feel for what, because we all play feedback wise to what we hear. And so I think that's the biggest thing, especially for people who are used to using tube amps, is you're used to a push and pull between you and the feedback of the sound, and then the way that comes out. Where I've been on stage where I couldn't hear myself at all, and I've been playing from memory, literally just. And that we're going to talk about groove tonight. We're going to talk about how important that is to have a groove. So I don't want to go too far down the line on that, but let's just say it can be going direct to the board. The hardest thing in the world is hearing yourself at that point, getting the feedback from the equipment and hearing what you're going to get out of it.
Yeah, and I think that's why you're seeing more and more products marketed at players monitoring themselves on stage with an actual speaker. So this whole FR quote unquote revolution that's going on is more or less based on the fact that in a lot of these little bar bands, guys they don't use a personal monitoring system.
No.
A lot of times they're using the mains just to be able to hear the vocal, and their guitar amp is propped up and pointed at them. And when you take that away from them, like, they have no wedge or anything. And so immediately it becomes this like struggle of using the mains. So then, of course, everybody's like, oh, you got to get this, sound. And then, of course, people are like, oh, well, does it sound like a real amp? And then you go down that whole thing. It's like, it's not really supposed to sound like a real amp. It's supposed to sound like a recorded tone.
Yes.
That's the goal. I mean,
that is a huge difference.
It's a giant distinction. I mean, you're talking about putting things through a filter is basically what you're doing. So,
absolutely. It's almost like you already went into the studio, put a microphone on it, and recorded it.
Yes,
I mean,
exactly.
not like it. That's what getting
it's doing.
Back.
Yeah. So I got to say something. I am a little jealous of the Pod HD500 you have, because your amp models and your cabinet models. Your amp models are fine. The cabinet models allow you to actually place the microphone either on axis or off axis.
Or off axis, yeah.
And the Helix does not allow you to do this.
Really?
No.
I'm shocked.
And I'm not really sure, but I think that, like, the SM57 is on axis, the MD241 is on axis, but it's like each one has like a different position. And what they did was they tried to put it in the place that they thought it sounded best.
Yeah.
But my whole thing is like look, I don't want to hear an SM57 pushed up to the damn cone. Like,
Right.
No, don't put it in the center. What's wrong with you?
Even in real life, I don't do that. I put it off axis.
And there's mic techniques for using, use like a 30, or I guess it's a 45-degree angle.
Yep.
And you place it up against the cone and like one on axis and
but what I normally do, if this is,
and
people, I'm pointing to my pop filter here. If this was my speaker cone,
you want it to be.
I'd be over here.
Most people want it on the middle of the middle of the cone.
I'm right out here.
Maybe a little closer to the center, but like on the middle of the cone somewhere.
Yep.
I don't see anybody who really does the whole like I'm going to mic the edge of the cone, but I have seen people do it in studio situations for certain things. But
in studio, I can see reasoning for that. And I put it 4 inches off. A lot of people are putting it a lot closer. I'm about 4 inches. Well, no, maybe 2 inches off.
Well, in studio, the reason why they do that, and just so our listeners know, like, is because they look at the recorded sound as and the microphone placement and all that as a form of EQ. And so they'll even use phasing as a form of that EQ. So they don't mind having a microphone that's slightly out of phase if it's doing the right stuff.
Right, because they can line that up.
Right. So if you don't know what phasing is, that's the distance between. It's not the distance. So you have a waveform, right? And it goes up and it goes down. It goes down, up and it goes down, right? Now, if you take a microphone, you turn it the other way, so it's pointing you instead of the amp. It's going to go down and then up, and then down and then up. So you're going to be completely out of phase, which means you're going to get cancellation. So if it's literally the same distance from the speaker, except that the element is turned the other way, that's what will happen. You will actually cancel out your guitar sound. I don't know that you could actually do that.
I don't know if you want
in the real world. In the real world, I don't think that's possible. But the idea is that you want to have phase alignment. So there's all kinds of calculations and stuff you can do so that you can even make sure that like two microphones that are of different distances are in phase, because that's where it gets challenging. Is that if you have two microphones that are different distances from the sound source, you can get variations of phase, and then that can cause like comb filtering and that kind of stuff.
And in the days of using tape and stuff, if you were using those mics and they were on the same track, that could be very dangerous.
Yeah, but you can always adjust phase in post too. So
but you can do it as long as they're in different tracks.
Right.
The problem that you can run into. And obviously, you wouldn't put two microphones on the same track.
No, not today.
No, and today, you did. But back in the days of 4 tracks and 8 tracks, that wasn't unheard of. Now, what they would do is like, let's say that you had a 4x12, and this was not uncommon. I don't think it's uncommon today. Is to have greenbacks in one half of the cabinet. And another type of...
or even to use two separate cabinets with different speakers in them.
Yeah. And so you would have to make sure, because even though you think those cabinets are putting out at the same time, there is a difference, even if they're daisy-chained.
Sure. And of course, even just the fact that if they're in the same room, and those microphones picking up bleed from one another can be an issue. And of course... Like if you think we got it bad, just talking about putting two microphones in different guitar cabinets or whatever, think about drummers. Think about how many microphones go on a drum kit and how you have to phase line and adjust everything. It's just nuts. So there's your recording science lesson for the day. Phasing sucks.
Which is why so many recording engineers, good, bad, or indifferent, have gone to using triggers and
because once you got a good sound that you can sample, like you can use it over and over to replace shitty sounds. So, is it taking the soul out of music? Sure, absolutely. But is it necessary sometimes? Yeah. If you've heard some really bad drum recordings before, yes, it is necessary at times.
Right. What David was talking about, where you can use the phasing to remove or to do some EQing, is if you're moving the microphone off. Wherever you put the microphone on the speaker is going to be a different EQ curve for those locations. So towards the center, correct me if I'm wrong, David, towards the center, it tends to have more high.
It's brighter. And you'll pick up the higher frequencies because that's where they come off the cone. And as you get towards the edge, it's more dark. And then when you get to the very edge, it actually has a lot of high end to it, but it's like a super scoop sound. And actually, it's a weird scoop. It's not like a V. It's like flat in the middle.
Right.
It's a really weird sound.
Which is why you'll see some engineers, even in a 2x12 or whatever situation, they'll have more than one microphone on the same speaker.
Yeah.
You're like, why are they miking the same speaker? Now, it's because they're trying to pick up those places. Then they'll put them in EQ.
Yeah, then they blend them. Or
together.
just to have options, and that's a lot of times you'll see when you see a 4-piece band that has like a 64-track mix, it's because they're only playing 20 of those tracks or something at any given time, but they have all these other tracks should they need them. Should they decide that they really should have put that MD241 on there, or the 421 rather, they could just literally punch that in and say, okay, here we go. I'm going to use that. Right. Yep. Which is kind of silly because now with direct boxes and doing single, you can literally just reamp. You can take a dry signal from the guitar, put it in the DAW, and then later on take that dry signal out and run it through an amp and record that. I think that's probably a lot more common now than to see some guy with 40 microphones on one speaker. Yeah,
the Another Brick in the Wall Part 2 solo was tracked with a Les Paul with P90s direct to the board, and then they reamped it.
Yeah.
Just
and
as an example.
That's not uncommon.
No.
The crazy story I want to bring up is when they did, I think it was Peace Sells, when Megadeth did that record.
Oh, yeah, Peace Sells, I was buying, yeah.
Yeah, when they did that record, they mic'd up 200 amps or something.
Yeah.
Looking for the guitar tone, and they had 20 going at any given time, and were just muting the ones they didn't want, and it was just a whole thing. They went through a really extensive process to get those guitar sounds, and it shows. For that time, the sounds on that record were just unbelievably good.
Yeah, I was going to say it definitely shows that it was worth it.
I was listening to Death Magnetic yesterday, and I was just like, "Wow, has Metallica's guitar tones really always been this bad?"
No,
no, they have been. They have been because I've listened to Master of Puppets right after, and they were equally bad.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they were. So actually, if anything, Death Magnetic, and when I first heard it, I said, "Oh, it's very the album is super perfect. They time aligned everything, obviously, and then all the vocals have been pitch corrected, and it's it's been done to death." But it's funny because the guitar sounds are they sound like they've been run through a Sonic Maximizer, a BBE Sonic Maximizer, and it to the point where even the rectifier just kind of really sounds pretty nasty and ugly. And I get it, they're playing metal. What do you expect? I mean, and they've always kind of been on the punkier side of metal.
I was going to say I really liked their fizzy. I say fizzy. Guitar tones they had early on, when you look back at
it was kind of similar to the Black Album in places. That was when they just started branching out and using really different amplifiers and stuff. They were using Mark
Were they
V's
using boogies
or Mark
the whole
IIs
time,
Well, so Hetfield's had an on again, off again relationship with Mark II C pluses, and Hammond is way into Durandals.
Yep,
and he's had the what they now the synergy system is the module based Randalls.
Right.
And he had his own modules and stuff for him. I think he has a signature amp with them now. And actually the funny part is his tone is the one I actually like less.
Yeah.
and which is kind of funny because it's he's the lead player. You figure, he'd have his shit together, but he always just seems like he's the little kid in the band. I don't know why.
He comes across like a little kid. He's
fun, and I think he's older
fun
than them.
And funny to watch. Yeah.
So
it's funny to see him. He's so animated.
But anyway, so we wanted to talk. You had some other notes tonight. We had other topics to cover.
Let's talk some other topics first.
Because I'm going to make you guys all wait for the riffage later. So
and for the secret word.
I don't know if I'm going to be able to hold my guitar up this entire episode. Holy crap!
My back.
I should have brought a stand and set it on the floor here or something.
Yep, I didn't do that. I'm stupid. So, all right. Because that was topic number one, we're going to.
We got to talk about Stevie T. If it's not in your notes, we need to talk about that.
Oh yeah, so I got to say this. So Stevie T came out this week with a video about the halftime show. Love or hate the halftime show. This is what I'm going to say positive because I'm not here to bash Adam Levine or I hate his music or whatever. I'm just going to say this. He sang live. And it's hard to do when there's that many people screaming at you. And he played guitar live. That was obvious too. And so, yes, you're right. If anybody's out there going, well, it was simple and it was, that's right. It was because you're trying to hear note definition in your in-ears with tens of thousands of people screaming in the background. That's what he did. You're right. But hey, guess what? He did it. I think that, but Stevie T went through and was like bashing on him, and I thought that was a little bit over the top. The way he bashed on his playing. I'm like, look, dude, he didn't play wrong. He didn't play any wrong notes. He was in tune. He was in key, and you still got to find a way to bash on him. And the one thing he also bashed on is the fact that he picked up an Ibanez gem at the end. And then, yeah, I got to admit, a gem was. He could have picked up a Squire for what
it was about the color and it was about the color and the modern look. That's what he was going for. But like, all right, so here's my rub with Stevie T. And it really goes back to some videos he's done right before this. Since the Richard Benson video that we covered earlier and kind of like talked about Richard Benson on the show and like what Richard Benson means and whether or not that was legit, like. Right. Richard Benson is one thing, but now it's become a pattern of him basically just making videos mocking other guitar players and singers and whatever. And I know he's trying to produce content, but this is not the right way to go about doing it.
No.
Like he needs to get back on track with what he does best, which is like, you know, the translation videos and things like that. Those are hysterical. But I'm actually going to take it upon myself and I'm going to write him an email. And I'm gonna ask him to come on the show if he wants to, but I'm gonna write him an email and I'm gonna tell him, hey, look, you know, you got to realize because he's talked openly on the show, he's got some anxiety disorders and things like this, and he wants people to be able to get help. And I'm gonna say, like, dude, you don't realize this, but you're inciting that. Yeah. Like you're making it worse for people who may have these problems or may not.
Well, it kind of feels like a case of hurt people hurting people. You know, it tend to bully people the same as you.
I don't think he even realizes he's
right. He doesn't realize he's doing it. But here's the thing. One of the basis of comedy is that you have to know when to turn the comedy onto yourself. You know what I mean? So you have to self-deprecate and put that on you, because otherwise you've lost the ability to
to have good humor. Because in his case, it's now just coming off like I'm better than these people, and or like let's make fun of these people.
Yeah, that's the dangerous part. Suddenly it becomes I'm better than you. And it feels like bragging, and it comes across as bragging, and that's kind of
okay.
So let's
moving on. I'm going to reach out to him. If anybody else wants to, I would recommend you do the same. Send him an email. Send him a message on YouTube.
And if you know him, tell him we'd love to have him on here and maybe.
Yeah, dude, I'm a fan, but like I'm not a fan of what you're doing right now, and that's where I'm at. So,
and we still love you. We still think you're a great guy. So, all right, so I'm going to go to I'm going to do these backwards because the playing in the groove was the first one that I had written down. So the importance of tuning and tuning methods. So this week, Dave and I had a discussion about tuning.
That's funny because I have the Helix on the floor.
What was that? Yeah, what was the thing? The impetus of that? You had sent me a message.
What did I send you a message about?
Remember, you sent me a message about.
Oh gosh.
I
remember now.
Yeah.
I remember now.
Yeah, I do remember.
So I'm a member of the Shred group on Facebook, and I forget what the name of the group is, but it's one of the big ones. Right. And guy posted there the other day, he's like, my friend says that real professional guitar players don't use tuners, that they could just use their ears. And I just went off on this dude, and I'm like, are you freaking kidding me? No professional guitarist I've ever seen doesn't use a tuner. I don't care if they have perfect pitch. Steve Vai is one of the people that's been documented as having perfect pitch. And you look, what's the first pedal on his board? It's a tuner. And what's the first pedal what's the first pedal that Thomas Nordag, his guitar tech, plugs into? It's a tuner. In fact, I've seen him use the Boss pedal tuner on his instead of a Peterson strobe. So, I mean, don't let anybody ever tell you that tuning is not important with an apparatus of some sort. Yes. Tuning fork, pitch pipes, piano. I don't care what you're using to tune, but everybody in the band has to use the same similar apparatus or whatever. They have to tune the same pitch.
So That's right. I was just going to say everybody should be using the same thing. If you're using a TU2,
I don't agree with that. I don't agree.
Hold
I know
on,
where you're going with this, but I don't agree with that.
I'm gonna stretch this. This is a stretch.
Okay.
If you're in the studio, everybody should use the same tuner. If you're live, if you're using a TU2 and somebody else is using a Peterson and somebody else is using whatever, you're using a TU3, you're fine, because the only thing that would change the reference 440 is the input power that you're all getting. So you should be okay in a regular like bar band.
Honestly, you're going to be less than 1/10 of a cent off anyway.
Right.
Even if the power was different, I don't even think in the studio it's really that important, to be honest with you. Now, if you're paying $1 million to make a record, yeah, I would probably do it anyway, just to hell, I'm doing it anyway, might as well. But I don't think it's that critical. I don't think anybody's going to be able to tell a difference.
Now, people who wonder about that, pros don't use guitar tuners. If you've ever listened to an AC/DC record and tried to play along,
I find it funny. I can't stop laughing.
Play along, you'll find out that they did not have perfect pitch. So any given song is off standard tuning by some amount of cents, and almost never the same amount unless they track it the same day. Because what would happen is Angus's guitar, he would go in and he'd tune it to his ear, and then everybody would tune to him because they were a guitar-based band. And so his SG was the standard tuning, whatever it happened to be that day. And that's why they're off, like never a full half, but never straight on. They're always like somewhere in between.
Same thing with Megadeth too. Like that Peace Sells record, at least the song Peace Sells is somewhere between E and E flat. And it just drives me nuts because, like, if you want to play along with it, you're like, "What the hell, man? Like, why did the engineer let you get by with that?"
Now, other times, if you listen to some of your old records, it's off. It's not because they didn't use tuners.
Slowed the tape down.
Right, the tapes were slowed down or sped up. A lot of times, what would happen is they would speed the tapes up. Now, the reason for that is because, and anybody that's a singer and a producer and whatever will tell you, higher pitches are higher energy in the mind's eye. It feels faster. It feels like it's going. So that's why they'll speed it up. So that's an old trick.
And that's usually done during the mastering phase, or like when they do a mix down to send to master, they'll speed it up then at that point. So
you remember the band The Darkness, right?
Yeah.
So there's the radio hit that they had, I believe, in a thing called Love. If you listen to the radio edit, it's in G. If you listen to the album, it's in F sharp. It was recorded in F sharp, and they pushed it to G. Whoever mixed it for the radio pushed it to G to get it higher energy.
Actually, the reason they did it was to get it lower in length.
Was it really?
Yes. Because
they
wanted to push it for more airplay.
Oh, yeah, for 3 minutes and whatever.
That's why the radio edit is higher than the album cut.
And it's faster.
And the stupid part is he can play it in G.
Yeah.
So,
and
I mean, that's not even the highest note in his range. Like, that's what's stupid about it. But they've never played that song in G live, to my knowledge. I've always seen it done in F, or F sharp.
Yeah, F sharp.
Because I think they tune flat anyway, so. Which is funny, with a range like that, why the hell would you tune flat? But
I know.
They just want them chunkier guitars, I guess.
What's his name, Dan?
No, that Justin Hawkins. Dan Hawkins is his brother. He's the other guitar player in the band. Yeah.
Yeah, Justin could definitely.
I'm a big Darkness fan.
Yeah. So, I knew it was Dan and Justin, but I couldn't remember which one was the singer.
Yeah. And surprisingly, both those guys are like really intellectual type people. And so Justin Hawkins was an accountant before he decided he was going to become a rock star. He quit his job and he basically just started drinking and doing drugs all day. He basically fake it till you make it, and then then he ended up in rehab and broke the band up, and it was the whole thing.
They got back together.
He's been sober since they got back together, but
I always, the first time I saw them, I thought, is that the basis for Spinal Tap?
Yeah, dude, like he's totally modeled after the band.
Harry
tries
Shearer.
to,
looks just like him.
He tries to look like Harry Shearer, but so.
Which is funny because I was talking to the guy from Line 6, Richie, and he was saying that.
You're talking
about Frank.
Frank, yeah,
Frank, and he was. I said, "Oh, it's funny because you know that there's several pictures from NAMM where people are standing next to a Ampeg that looks like it's oversized. It is. It's 11 feet tall.
Yeah.
That's a real thing. So they had him play Big Bottom from Spinal Tap through that.
Oh, and that's amazing. It was actually functional. That's amazing.
Yeah, it functions. It's like, I want to say he said 11,000 watts.
I would sing some of the lyrics from Big Bottom, but I would really rather avoid the hate mail right now.
And what's funny is I said, so did he break into any of his voices? Because he's one of the biggest voices on The Simpsons.
Yeah.
He does a lot of the town voices. He's Mr. Smothers.
He's a lot of different people on that show.
He's Mr. Burns. He's all kinds of people. And Frank said, no, he never breaks character.
No, he doesn't.
When he is the guy from
which is amazing that he does
Tap.
voices, because most of those guys that don't do that can't do voice acting.
Yeah.
So
he's definitely a character actor, which is funny because he's really funny. Really good, very
I was
talented.
watching some Spinal Tap, they did another documentary thing that they put on YouTube, and I was watching cracking up the other day.
They have an acoustic show that they do.
Oh yeah, I know.
They're so funny. These guys are so funny. They definitely
cleaner
are
version
musically
of
talented.
That other band that everybody likes that made the P Melter.
Oh yeah, they are pretty much. Yeah, Steel Panther.
Yep.
All right, so Leo Fender's Lost Guitar. So David sent me
that's a cool video, by the way.
Message, and I'll try to remember to post this into the group. So Leo Fender was working on a guitar with some really crazy pickup design and guitar design, but he didn't have the actual guitar designed. When I say that, it was like in a Telecaster looking thing that they had at C&L Laboratories.
Yeah, CF Research? Clarence?
CLF.
Clarence Leo Fender.
That's it. Clarence Leo Fender.
Why can I not remember that myself? Our half of the secret phrase is Fender. Visit Great Lakes Guitar Pickup's Facebook page for the other half, then email the completed phrase to questions@practicalguitarist.com by Sunday, February 17th, 2019. Tell your friends, and good luck.
I know. It's like, because he went by his middle name, like some people do. Anyway, so Leo Fender, when he passed away, this kind of dropped. Well, I guess they're going to produce him. I shouldn't say I guess, they are. Well, and they made an announcement on an interview with Anderton while Anderton's was in...
they invited them out there
NAMM.
because Anderton's is the UK dealer for G&L now. They didn't have any UK representation for a while. There's a whole thing about it. There's a video on YouTube with a shop owner just ranting and raving. So they were invited out there, and then they basically took them on the tour of Leo Fender's office in this video, and then they show them. But we got something we want to show you, and it was clear that they had already told the guys that they were going to see something. And then they took them into another room, and they showed them this CLF Research prototype guitar, and they showed them actually some of the designs that kind of went into it, and how they amalgamated those designs. And it's a pretty cool piece. It's a Telecaster-looking thing with a different upper bout. It's like slightly elongated or whatever. And it has these crazy active pickups in it, which predate pretty much every other manufacturer's active pickups.
Now, EMG might have been around when that was.
Oh no, EMG was late 70s, mid to late 70s. Yeah, I think they started in 75. The prototype date on those were 69.
Yeah.
Because
he was working on it when he sold off to CBS
for CBS when he designed them. So, crazy stuff. And there's more guitars coming from them. And they've been digging through his desk, and they're like, man, every time we come in here, that was the fun part about the video, is like, every time we come in here, we see something else that we're like, what in the hell? Like, Where is that? Why is this not being produced? And so
I can tell you this. You know, somebody has data mined that thing, and they've got
they got 10 years worth of designs, and they're just like well, we're not going to release guitar next year. We'll hold on to that for like 3 or 4 years.
But this is what I took from it. Not that I'm not, you know, that I'm not a crazy Fender guy, but I took this from it. With the advent of the new Greg Koch guitar, which you and I were both underwhelmed by how it looked.
Yeah.
I was really,
it's just the look. I'm sure it plays great. It's the look.
Yeah.
I can't stand the look.
It's just, I don't even know why the pick guard. Why the pick guard?
I think somebody was saying they were going to get that Best in Show at NAMM, and I'm like, what?
Yeah, I saw that the other day. I was like, really? I guess that some people like that. If you haven't seen it, the pick guard is kind of like just a straight line with like it's just got no.
Just go look at a picture. Don't waste your time describing it.
But anyway, it looks like the head or the end of a pencil with the eraser. That's about it. And it's not like it's functional. I mean, I would think that Greg would have said, you know what, screw it, take the pick guard off and just make it the way it is. But anyway. That said, the Fluence pickups that he's using,
they're great.
His set,
it
feels like that. Now, I'm not saying that they knew anything about the design that we're about to see from Fender, but it felt like a lot of what they're talking about that's in the Fluence, because I was listening to the technology behind both of them, is is very close to the expected use. I'm not saying
no, right. The same concepts, the idea of having like a lower output pickup that doesn't have to have as many winds. Right. The only difference really is that the Fluence pickups are done with a solid coil, whereas they're using wire. But you see you see the bobbins on that? Like there's almost no wire on those pickups. Yeah. And
we're just going to put a little wire right here.
Actually, the one that amazed me was the fact that predates the Les Paul recording, which was the high impedance pickups and all that.
That was mid-70s,
low impedance, whatever. Because I think that came out, I want to say like 73 or 74 when he started.
Yeah, I want to say it was 74, but it might have been 70.
So he was like, that's one of the few times where we could say that, like, Leo Fender was being more innovative, perhaps, than Les Paul. And I don't think those guys ever like saw each other as competition. Like that's another thing. Maybe they did. I don't know. But it's just really interesting to see like they're on these parallel trajectories and doing the same things. And then at some point the guitar playing community is like, "Fuck you guys. We're not going to use your innovations. Like we're just going to stick with the same shit we've been using for like 30 years, 40 years."
What I saw recently, Rabia Masad said something like this, and RNA Music said something like this, and I kind of got to agree. There's really only 3 kind of guitars. In all reality, you got acoustics, which is all Martins, right? Everything's based on Martin designs. You've got electric guitars based on Fender designs, and you've got electric guitars based on Gibson designs. That's pretty much it.
All right.
Now, I'm not saying the
vast majority. Because there are definitely some shit out there that has nothing to do with either of those brands.
Steinberger has nothing to do with those brands.
I would even argue, who's the acoustic? Breedlove.
Breedlove.
They're so far removed from what you would get out of a Martin that, or Godin, another...
Emerald. I don't know if you've seen Emerald guitars.
The carbon fiber bodies and all that.
Yep, which Rain Song, same thing.
So obviously, generalizing... But the vast majority of guitar players own one of those types of guitars. They own a Fender or a Fender knockoff, a Gibson or a Gibson knockoff, or a Martin knockoff.
Yep. Where I would still, I've always, when somebody asks me to describe a PRS, I say it's like a Strat and a Les Paul had a baby.
Yeah, that's what he wants everybody to think. I think it's its own unique thing.
I do too. But when it comes to feel and play, to try to, because again, you can't really describe. It's like trying to describe something that you've never tasted, but tastes like chicken.
Yeah, I don't know. I actually played my Gibsons the other day for the first time in a while, and my Gibson and my I actually played my the Shengzai, the Red Unicorn, and I don't know, they're like, for some of the stuff I've been playing lately, because I'm so accustomed to playing on an S500 now that it's actually like physically hard for me to adjust, like really physically hard for me to adjust. And it just brought to mind that like I need to play those guitars more, so that's not an issue anymore.
Yeah, I've been playing this one all week exclusively.
That's the
versus
SG.
the SG.
He's molesting right now with his hands. He's like rubbing them all over it.
Oh, I love the feel of his guitar. I love the smell of it.
He's trying to get that nitro to wear off on his clothes.
Yeah, and that's just it. The nitro is still too perfect. I need to get some wear right in here.
You just need some acetone. It'll be fine.
No, not gonna fake wear it. It's gonna be real wear.
No, acetone will not wear it. It will just rub the paint right off.
I was gonna say it's gonna take the paint off. I love this guitar. I really do. So anyway, looking forward to seeing that guitar. I'm looking forward to seeing what they had a prototype. Of course, the prototypes could change.
Yeah. It'll be available. I have a feeling it's not going to change that much. I don't think they would have been showing it off knowing that it was going to change a lot. And then they showed the Doheny with the double MFDs, which was really interesting. So the Doheny, of course, is a G&L version of a Jazzmaster or a Mustang. Well, not a Mustang.
The offset.
Yeah, it's an offset, guitar. Right? So they got a lot of shit for it because it was like, oh, you're only doing it because everybody else is doing it. Well, listen, they have Leo Fender's heritage all over the company. I mean, they almost have to do it at some point. Right. And what they put out was actually a really interesting guitar. They put MFD pickups that were of a unique design into a offset, and it's a pretty cool sounding and pretty cool playing piece.
I think for people who don't know what MFD is, so
magnetic field design.
Yes, explain how that works with the pole pieces because it's very important there.
So there's these pickups are more true, at least based on our conversations with Nick Baumers, to the original Strat prototype pickups, which they're regular 6-pole piece. The poles are I believe they're steel pole in this. I think they're stainless. And the idea is that you have a ceramic bar magnet underneath the pickup that does the majority of the work, and then the steel being touched to that magnetic pole piece then magnetizes it. And then, of course, they have hex screws, and they're all individually height adjustable. The staggered coil, or the staggered, magnets that you get on a regular Strat pickup? No more of that bullshit. You can adjust them as needed, which is wonderful, because then you don't have to, compress them in or pull them out, do all that craziness to try and get even string balance, or split the difference, and say, no, I need my G to be louder, so I'm going to raise the treble side and then lower the bass side. It's just that stuff's psychotic, and it's gone. You don't have to do it anymore. Plus, they're a way hotter Singer coil. They have a lot more body and a lot more sparkle than you'll ever get out of a humbucker, at least in my opinion, unless you go to really, really, unless you go to a really high output, style humbucker that not high output, but one with an EMGs, active pickups. That's what I'm thinking of. The name is escaping me, but really cool pickups. You can play metal with S500 pickups, which is pretty incredible. And they use MFDs, so all the different MFD pickups, and now they're doing a humbucker based around the same principle with 2 ceramic bar magnets, and then basically wiring them. The one's reverse wound and doing the same thing. So really cool stuff coming from them. It'll be interesting to see, when those hit shelves and what they're going to retail for and stuff. The CLF stuff is typically over $1,000, but it's not. They're not expensive. Beyond. I mean, yes, $1,000 for a lot of people is that's more money than I want to spend on a guitar. But if you're in the market for a professional quality instrument, they're right there in the same category with most of your mid-level Strats and Tellys.
Yeah.
So, I have a feeling these will be too. But they don't really make anything that's super extravagant and expensive. At least not that I've seen. I think they're starting. They want to try to get there.
Shop.
Now, even the custom. This is custom shop. This was $1,500, and it was a custom shop. Yeah,
but you admit that you got that for a good deal too.
No. I paid the price that anybody pays when they go to the custom shop for this guitar. That's the thing. So their custom shop is not like everybody else's custom shop. They do some of the crazy stuff. If you want to call an order, I want a GNLV. My understanding is they're starting to take on those kind of orders. But their idea of the custom shop is really just here's an S500 and I want this, this, and this on it. right? So they also have a standard line now, which they didn't have before. It used to be all custom. So like the dealer would order what they wanted on the guitars, they'd make it for them. Now they have like 3 product lines. So they have CLF Research, which is more like the 80s type G&Ls. They have the custom shop, and then they have, the Fullerton Standard, which the Fullerton Standard is, of course, they're like, this is what people normally order, so we're going to offer this at a cheaper price. I think they're right around $1,000.
Yeah.
And they don't make all their models in Fullerton Standard. It's a limited color selection. So if you want to go crazy, you got to go into custom shop, and then you're going to pay a little bit more, but it's not like I can't afford it because it says custom shop on it kind of thing.
Right.
Whereas, custom shop vendors are $3,000. That's where most of them sit, and they go all the way up to $20,000, depending on what you want to do.
Yep.
So, a whole other animal, and I wouldn't consider just because it says custom shop don't think that means like truly bespoke, like whatever the hell you want to do, private builder kind of deal. It's nothing like that. You want that? Go to Jackson, go to Charvel. So anyway, I've got MFDs in this thing, and I just realized I have it turned on, so we could see what they sound like if anybody's so inclined, because we've talked about it on the show a lot. So
yeah,
I'm gonna hit my clean sound, and I'll give you like. Now I'm on the neck pickup. Now, I don't know if it's coming across, but these pickups have an insane amount of bass. But the cool thing is, the G&L Electronics give you a bass roll-off. And of course, you treble.
That sounds wacky.
Yeah, you can blend. Typically, I have my bass rolled all the way up, but if you really want to be like versatile and be able to go into any guitar amp that you plug into, you just roll it back a quarter, and then you're ready to rock and roll through whatever. And that helps with fuzz too. That's actually why I love these guitars, because I can use my fuzz face with them, and I can roll back the bass and get it like way clearer than you're going to get traditionally. So, but that's these pickups are, as you can hear, they're a lot more P90 like than your traditional single coils. And they do the quack thing too. That's the in-between bridge, and then we'll do the in-between neck. Kind of what you would expect, and I'm just making sure my controls are all the way up, and then you get the it's got a wide variety of stuff it can do. Jim, that's probably the first time you've ever heard this thing in high quality. I don't know how high quality is on your end, but
it's coming through terribly because for some reason it's coming through squawky and
here I'm waiting for Jim to like give me some decent details and
compressing the hell out of the audio.
It sounds terrible.
Yeah, no, yeah. As long as it sounds good in your headphones, that's the important thing. That's
it's
your
okay.
Logic
it's not great, but
Logic is looking at it. Yeah, I've got a pretty dirty tone dialed in right now. So I've been playing ZZ Top for a while, but I can reach over and switch it.
Yeah, your audio is super hot. It's gonna be real fun to mix.
Yeah, but the one thing that, like, David, let me see if I can grab a clean tone real quick. This is super clean. So if you were to play this is clean as it gets because there's literally nothing. That's a neck pickup. Bridge pickup. Whoops. Probably turn the volume up for it. And, but the thing that I was going to get to is, so he was talking about that tone roll off. All you really do usually with a set of pickups, obviously, is, roll your tone.
Yeah.
And it gets that kind of fuzzy sound, but it's not really, people associate it with jazz.
I get the 2-band EQ, which is nice. It's a little bit different.
Yeah,
and you can get Strat
nice
sounds out of it by doing that. That's the cool part.
Yeah. So I do like the fact that this thing does not have split coil.
Yeah, because I think people tend to like, oh, I'm going to use that all the time, and then you really don't. And honestly, I think people place too much emphasis on whether a pickup is single coil or humbucker in a lot of cases. Yep. If you've got a really good set of humbuckers, yes, they're going to sound very different than single coils. But if you adjust the amp in a live setting, it's not as important as people think. I mean, watch, you can go find videos of Eric Johnson playing SGs. Yep. And he's got an SG that he loves, and they use it a lot when they have noisy venues or whatever. And it still sounds great,
yeah.
So it's about finding the right ones, basically.
And exactly. No two guitars can be exactly alike.
Yeah, and we know like SGs can be thin as hell. They can sound like freaking Telecasters if you're not careful. So
this one's got a lot of punch. But I've been where I played an SG that just had no balls in the pickup, especially in a bridge. And you're expecting when you pick them up to get that, and instead you get something that sounds like this.
Yeah.
That's what a Strat sounds like to me every time.
Well, yeah, and that's the thing. Like, that's because you're used to playing hotter humbuckers. If you have like a true set of PAF pickups, they're going to be about the same output.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I've been playing, burst buckers obviously before, and
which is funny because they're like, oh, that's the most accurate version of a PAF ever made, but then they're like super freaking hot. I'm like, what? No, they're not.
Yeah, of course it's not. But I have a very light touch. We were talking about that earlier, also in the group, is the touch that you have that affects the way, like if David picked up my guitar, let me go back to my, if I went to my ZZ Top thing, if I had this, if I was to put that in David's hands, I'm sure that would sound a lot different.
I would play it in different positions too, and that's the other thing. Like, different play. If you just give the player the chords, like you're going to play a different G chord than I will probably.
We were talking about that earlier tonight. When you were talking about the chord.
He might play it at the 3rd fret. I'm going to be up here, at the 10th. And just rocking away with my G chord,
Right. So we were talking about ZZ Top. So this is a good segue to get us towards the last topic and towards the last topic I had, other than the funk playing the groove, and that's songs for covering songs and playing songs live. So David was playing. Go ahead and play that piece you were doing. The ZZ Top. Keep Sunglasses.
Keep Sunglasses.
Yeah, so what I would do is I would stay off of, if I was playing that with him, I wouldn't play this. I would stay off of that, and I would do, every time he went to this, I would do this. I would go, and I would just do that. And it sounds so like, people would say, well, that doesn't sound like very interesting. Yeah, if you're sitting there alone, it doesn't sound interesting. But what you're trying to do is thicken up this, and you're trying to give it that high end,
Right.
And then this, when you're playing it, and we're both doing it similarly, you're palm muting this. Right?
Yeah.
So when you palm mute that, if you don't play it exactly in the same timing,
right. Which brings us to the groove discussion.
With that, and there we go. Now we're in the groove discussion. So go for it.
All right. So I've been learning some music recently that's not in my wheelhouse. Right. And then I started to say, I need to learn a song that like I used to know and like figure it out and do it the right way. So I started playing Cult of Personality, which if you've never heard the riff, it's that's basically the main riff of the song.
Right.
Now, you can see it's a
really... And it plays a lot.
Basically throughout the song, there's little variations and stuff, but basically it's it. And you can see that it's a riff that the bass player, the guitar player, the drummer, and even the singer have to lock into. And it's very much like got to be in sync. And if you're out by a millimeter, and I've actually recorded myself playing it, you can tell immediately. Yep. And that band is, as I pointed out to Jim after we talked about it, that band is super tight, and everything they play is like that, where it's the groove is straight on and it's not time aligned, and that's what's ridiculous about it is like a lot of their music is there's no click. You can hear them actually speeding up and slowing down, but they're completely in sync the whole time, more so than most bands are. If you want to hear a band that's not very good at that, go listen to like the 70s era Aerosmith stuff.
Yeah.
They're all over the place.
Whitford and Perry are playing two different
and
things.
They're hiring other guitar players to play on that shit too, which kills me. Like they're still all over the place.
It's the weirdest. Can I use the word shit?
Yeah. I mean, I don't mind some Aerosmith. I'm not a fan.
There are people that slam on this. Again, we're not putting that music down or that style of playing down. It's just that the problem is when you get into a big, and this is what I was getting at with covers. So if you get into a big place, let's say you're playing a large hall or something of that nature. The bigger the place, the more that the ping pong effect you get from the actual physical location. The choice of how to play in that place can be completely based on how much ping pong you're getting in a room. Yeah. Because let's face it, unless you're playing like a concert hall, and even in a concert hall, you're going to have that feedback. There's a reason that one of your reverbs is called, or not your reverb, your delay is called hall. Yeah, reverb.
That's a reverb.
Yeah, it's called hall. Is because that's what it is.
And actually, Jim, this may be something you didn't know, but maybe you do. People who play in orchestras like typically want to be a certain distance from another instrument because they get used to dealing with that delay.
Yep.
Which I know sounds absolutely insane, but that's exactly what you're talking about. Is if you're sitting in front of a studio and it's a different studio than when the song was actually recorded, and like you're tracking a solo in some other place.
Right.
That could affect the groove. It could also affect like just the fact that they can't lock in because they're not able to see the other musician, which is a big part of it.
If you've ever been in a pit as a musician, and you ever wondered why so little kids, obviously, no, I'm not making fun of little kids. I'm not putting little kids down. Everybody understand that first. When you go to the grade school band thing, you hear this cling-clang mishmash of stuff because they're used to practicing alone, and their eyes are focused, laser focused on the notes on the page. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm not putting that down. The thing is, there's a reason for a conductor. The conductor is their timepiece. That is their metronome.
Yeah.
Because the first string violin and the timpani in the back are so far apart from each other that there's a ping pong if they're not working with
and that's a huge component of what you're saying, but they do also operate a lot by ear. Because the conductors, like if you've ever watched a conductor who gets like super animated, it could still be super fucking hard to tell like if they're on beat and stuff. Like, having played in band when I was in high school, like, I can tell you there are times where that baton doesn't mean shit.
Yeah.
You know, like, you're just like,
that's
wait, what?
That's why working with different conductors for different musicians can be a pain in the ass. I mean,
Yeah.
you'll talk to a musician that's worked in a, I don't know if you've worked in any community theater type stuff or whatever, but when they change conductors, that can throw the
they're
musicians
like,
off.
what are we doing now? You know, like,
Yeah.
one time the guy's just doing the baton normal, the other time, you know, the next guy's jumping up and down and shit.
Yeah.
And you're like, what in the hell?
What am I supposed to? Am I supposed to follow his head? His
My
nose?
thing is
Where am
like,
I-
so they give out awards to conductors and stuff.
Yeah.
They give out awards, and so like for me, if the conductor's one of these guys that jumps up and down, you're a conductor. You're not supposed to be a fucking performer. Like, get that goddamn baton moving the right way and call on the right groups of instruments to come up and go down as needed. Don't sit there and wiggle your ass and turn around and do the Macarena with the audience and like all this crap. Nobody wants that. They want you to conduct, okay?
That's right.
Turn around and give the folks what they asked for.
It's your freaking job. Get it done.
Do it
You're the
right.
metronome. You're the timepiece. You're the cueing. I mean, if you think about it, the conductor is directing who's in what part, when you're coming in, when you're going out, when you're introducing a piece, and what the timing is, all at the same time. A really good conductor is a master, and that's why they call him a maestro.
Right. All right. So moving on.
Yeah.
So that's a form of groove, right? Like, that's probably the stiffest form of groove, where you're actually syncing up completely visually. Because and I've even seen situations where a conductor will have a metronome, and they'll be in rehearsals, they have a metronome going, and they'll be just, calling on instruments, bringing up levels and stuff with their hands and all that.
Yep.
That's kind of a similar thing to how you record a studio where you have a click.
Yep.
Now, where it gets really crazy when we're talking about groove is there are different kinds of groove. Like, obviously, blues is going to be a different groove than even just conventional rock music, really.
Yeah.
Often they're very closely related, but like the one I think of is like swing jazz is very not swing music, but jazz that has a swung beat is very, very different than jazz that is how do I put it? That is more like straight ahead, and you get your smooth jazz, which is in like straight 4/4 type stuff. But if you listen to like Dave Brupecker's Time Out, I'm trying to think, they have like stuff in 7/8 on there. That kind of stuff, like, that's done with straight ahead jazz, but then they get into the part where they're like just vamping the chords, and then it's, it turns into like, and I'm sure I don't know the chords to that song offhand, but like it just turns into this, where they're swinging and they don't have a guitar player in the band, but like the comp is like on the on the ones, and then like they've got like a 16th triplet going on for the beat, and I'm like trying to think of a good example of what that kind of beat is, but I haven't played that kind of jazz in like a super long time. It was kind of how I got started in guitar, was playing a lot of jazz standards and stuff. But
really,
yeah, my first teacher was he was Puerto Rican, and he was way into like gypsy jazz music, and he had me doing all this like Django Reinhardt stuff, and then he also got me into some like the later stuff, and we kind of stopped, exploring that and went into other music. But so that's where my background is, like that whole thing, the gypsy jazz thing. I wish I could still play that stuff because it's all on the one.
Yeah.
Actually, I can probably still do it.
Yeah. You know what that sounded like?
Yeah, what?
Queens of the Stone Age.
Probably, yeah, and that's a very borrowed motif.
I was going to say that's a very borrowed. That it sounds just like that beginning to that song. No One Knows.
It always felt to me like the guitar was being played with brushes because it's swinging so hard. That groove feels very like it misses a lot.
Yeah,
and the band feels like it misses a lot. There's a lot of like and I know they're not really missing. It's just because those they don't fall into normal rhythmic patterns. They're not really triplets. And that's the thing. Like you, if you notate this and you were to write out, you'll see triplet feel. Instead of swing. Yeah, but really, it's not a triplet feel. It's somewhere between a one and a triplet.
Exactly.
And if you think about so Iron Maiden uses a triplet feel technically because it's not really triplets.
Right.
That's not triplets. That's actually eighth notes missing one in the middle.
Where triplet would be
Right.
And if you're wondering how we're counting, I'm counting that, folks. It's triplet. So it's triplet. It's hard for me to say.
Yeah, when you try and stop and count it, you're like, wait a minute.
So I'm doing that, and I'm counting 1, 2. So yeah, see, I can't.
I'll show
count
an exercise at the end of this for all of our listeners too, because I think we could all guitar players of the world today are, in general, I would say, apathetic towards rhythm a lot more than they should be.
Yeah.
And I'm one of them, and I will completely call myself out. But that whole thing, triplets, all that stuff, that's part of groove. But I would say that it's more about the feeling that you get from that kind of music. So we were talking about, that was gypsy jazz kind of feel. Now, if you get into the blues stuff, I'm not going to play a whole 12 bar, but right. That's basically the same kind of idea. You have these swung, I guess there would be swung triplets again, and it would probably be, every other, well, really, every note is a swung triplet in that kind of situation.
Right. You take the intro to, Long Train Running, right?
Yeah.
Where it's got a free form feel to it. If you hear somebody play it, in a stiff feel, it sounds like this. That's not stiff. They sound like.
Right.
Where it's more of a feel thing where it's.
And that's a big part of it. I was going to talk about accent and groove next.
Right.
So you could talk about the timing and counting the beats and getting that down, and even understanding that there are subdivisions that exist beyond 16th notes, triplets, 32nd notes, 64th notes, and all the triplet variations therein. You can actually get into these weird, and it's almost like microtonal stuff, but it's literally just rhythmic variation and division. So what you were showing was dynamics there, a lot of dynamics. So if I was to, and a perfect example for me is what's a good one? Probably the intro to, let's see if I can get this to go with my sound the way it is right now. The, I'm Whipping Post, the verses.
Right.
That's in 6/8 time and but you can hear that I'm chucking away, And it's very about where I hit those accents.
Yep. It's also got to do with where you're muting them as well.
Exactly.
Yep. Go ahead.
Because that controls the accent.
Absolutely.
And then the other thing that I've seen a lot of guitar players, especially online, talking about improving rhythm. You're talking about going fast, and how you execute these. You want to make sure that your ones land on the same beat or whatever, but it's really not that. It's not your 1. It's not your 2, 3, 4. What you want to make sure you're doing is that those accents, the accents have to be dead on. If you can't get the accents dead on, then the rhythm's not going to sound right.
Right.
And I wish I could demonstrate it for you. I don't think I could probably pull something out where I can't play the accent.
Part of that has got to do also with your tone. If I tried to do the same thing, but I had a lot of distortion in.
Yeah, but that's exactly why I dialed it back. Because I'm like, if I do that with...
You're going to get a lot of crap. You see, it doesn't
go completely dead.
And if it doesn't go dead enough, and so it doesn't allow me that. And you get people that they don't know that. And even a simple like I want to point out a band. Every time somebody asks for easy stuff, they're like AC/DC, and it's like AC/DC.
No,
we talked about that last week. Right.
There's so much fucking groove there.
And
like, what?
There's an incredible groove. And I see people like a simple song like Highway to Hell, right? So they'll play, right? That piece right there, if you don't notice, I'm not playing exactly 16th notes or quarter notes or eighth notes. I'm playing...
They're laid back off the beat.
It's laid back. And so when I get to the next part, it's... And so there's that. Now, if you play that stiff, it's. I still just like you. I fail to play it wrong enough, but I'm sure that comes across. I hope that my stiffness was coming across there. That it felt stiff when I played it the second time. Well, you take stuff like Kiss. It's easy until you have to rhythm it. And I remember having people ask me, years ago. They say, "How do you get that kind of in between feel?" I said, "I honestly don't know. I don't know."
It's more of a vibe, and that's why I call it groove, because it's right? Really like. Okay, I'm going to be lazy with this part.
Right.
I'm trying to think, like, maybe I've got some of my own music I could probably play. I don't know. And this part in the beginning... That's supposed to be like lazy,
right?
And you can hear it.
And
like if I did it, that's the difference. Like versus where it's like right on, and that makes so much of a difference in so many songs. Not every song, and there are cases like where. The phrasing of a lead line or something is more critical. And that you can get really crazy when you start talking about phrasing lead lines. I'm not going to do it because I suck at it. I suck at like playing behind the beat with a single note. I'm really, really bad at it, or playing ahead of the beat with a single note. And I think it's a lot harder to do. I do it subconsciously, just like you're saying, Jim, where like, I'm not even consciously where I'm doing. Like I have a song that's on iTunes that goes like this.
Yep.
And that groove, I for years was like, I've never released this. I'm never going to put this out because I couldn't play it. I couldn't play it perfectly in time. And then one day I realized, wait a minute, that's a melody line. It doesn't have to be perfectly in time. Like it has to be. Actually, it's supposed to be kind of off. Mm-hmm. It's that just
has a really groovy feel to it.
And then, the rhythm part's even better. So I mean, that's...
See that? He can't even cover his own music well. No, I'm just kidding. So if you get that though, here's something I want the listeners to notice about David's playing just now is without thinking about it, obviously, he was able to pull back just long enough to make it so that if a drummer was playing with him, this is the part, the groove where just the guitar fails us a little bit. is that there's going to be that slight bit where the drum's going to hit, the bass player's going to hit, and then David's going to be slightly behind them. And what does that do? It not only accents the way he plays, his playing accent, the music then accents his playing.
Yeah. I gotta dig that track out, because now I'm thinking about, like, maybe I should dust that off. But because that's why I can't even play like my own rhythm work, right? But the cool thing about that tune is it has this, especially for the I guess these are the choruses. It has this underlying motif, and you'll hear it. And that locks in with the kick drum. Yep. So that part locks in the kick drum, but then the other notes are all like they just kind of float over the top. And it's all about holding those chords out and getting the chord to ring out, even though you're like doing this moving bass line underneath. So it's just it's an interesting piece. I think it fits real well into our discussion and dynamic and thing here, because this is all dynamic.
Yeah, and with dynamics comes along with something that we do also without really thinking about it. And this comes with time. Anybody that tells you there's a magic pill or wants to sell you their program that'll get you better in 5 minutes is full of shit, because that can't happen. You are going to learn your internal clock, your heartbeat, your brain, everything that works together is what makes you you and what makes you different. What David doesn't is talking about also with dynamics, not just the way he's playing each one, but also with the fact that each time he plays it, it's a little bit different. And because he can do it a little bit different, he can. And I'm speaking for you, David. So you got to chime in if I'm wrong, because I do the same thing.
I'm not cutting you off. You're right.
I will purposely play each time a little bit differently, because that accents what I'm doing in that moment.
Music is theme and variation.
Right.
And so
otherwise it is a boring click thing that you could copy and paste every time.
Right. So I have a dozen different ways to play that riff. The bass line is still the same for the bass player.
Right.
The drums are still the same. They can do their fills and stuff in the right places, and so that's fine. And it's really more about creating a mood and a motif. And so as long as I make sure that I'm using the same bass lines, then it should be good. It should work fine. And in truth, I could literally get the I guess these are 16th notes. I could hand that off to the bass player and say, okay, you're going to play 16th notes, and I'm just going to play the chord over the top, So
right.
And that would be fine. But I've chosen to arrange it this way because I want to make sure that I have that distorted, like palm muted thing going on. And so that there's enough separation between those notes. Because bass players, I'm not saying bass players can't do this. Obviously, Billy Sheehan can pull it off, and there's a lot of people out there that can. Jeff Berlin's and stuff, who would be able to do the same kind of feel rhythmically. But in general, bass players they're not able to palm mute if they're playing with their fingers. And so that makes it a little bit more difficult. They actually palm mute with their left hand more than they do their right hand, which is kind of strange.
Now, so as a guy who played bass for a long time, and played bass for a lot of different bands, what David said is absolutely right. It is an art to learn how to mute with the right hand as well as finger pick.
I do the same thing on guitar, actually. A lot of my muting is going on in the left hand instead of the right hand.
I think that I had a step up on other bass players in that I had started on guitar, so I already knew a lot of palm muting things. There's a lot of people who will make fun of bass players. I'm not saying that that's not an easy job, or that it's an easy job, because it's not. Especially a good locked-in bass player. I would rather have someone who's locked into a groove than somebody who can play, quote-unquote, all the notes. Because I just want someone who can hit the timing because that thump is got to be there for me. Because I
I'd
can play
rather than
melody
lock-
lines all night.
I'd rather lock in that particular part of the song. I don't want to make this discussion about the song. I would rather have the bass locking in with the bass drum.
Yep.
Than I want them locking in with what the guitar's doing.
Right. Matter of fact, I don't want them locking in with a guitar sometimes.
Yeah, because I want that the root note reinforcement that happens on the 1 and the 2. You know.
And so if you're like, let's say you're beginning and you're cowboy chording your way through stuff, there's a couple of different ways to cowboy chord around, right? So let's say you're playing a simple G thing to a C, right? You're just playing to C, right?
I didn't think we liked cowboy chords.
We hate cowboy chords. Apparently, somebody thinks we hate cowboy chords. I don't know why that came across that way. What we were saying is that's the simple stuff, and then you move forward. So what we're doing, we're talking about.
I still use them every day.
Obviously, I just did with the AC/DC stuff. Matter of fact, a lot of people think that AC/DC uses a lot more power chords than they do. That was something there's a lot of open chords there in their music. They choose those for a reason. But anyway, so if you're playing, I could play this simple thing like this. And if you can see my right hand, it's moving like a metronome. But that can get boring and it can get very taxing. So you've got to learn how to kind of lay back. And even in a cowboy chord thing, you want to. So notice I used a little palm muting. You can also
palm muting and then lifting off his fingers on the left hand as well.
Exactly. And I also pull up. Notice I started with an upstroke versus a downstroke.
Upstrokes are a big upstroke, downstroke is another big thing. And actually, like, I learned almost everything to do just like alternate. And then what really got into that chukka stuff, you know, where, you know. And you can see that Jim can see that it's all upstrokes and downstrokes. But the funny thing is, like, you can create a different feel using some upstrokes.
Right.
You know?
And if you're playing with that guitar player, if you're the second guitar player, you've been playing that song together for a while, you might choose to play like he was playing this. Right?
Yeah.
So I know that's an A with this, with this note on top here, right?
It's an A minor 6, I believe, yeah.
Right, A minor 6. But I know that I could play an A minor under that. And if he played that at the same time, my A minor would work. Or I could play two notes of the A minor right there and leave this one off. So,
yeah, but the whole thing is like, and you going back to what we were talking about, upstrokes, downstrokes, you could even choose to do your, so like when I'm doing a downstroke, you could reverse it. And then it gives you a much bigger sound because you're hitting the chord from the opposite direction.
Absolutely.
But it also kind of makes it muddier and like, it makes it almost too big in some ways if you do it too much. Right.
And that's what I was going to say. So that's what I was about to do. So if he's going, I can go, just do that.
Right.
And it gets back to that thing where I said you can just go, just bring that. Wow, that sounds really crappy when you got it too clean of a sound. But the choice is yours of how to voice if you're the second guitar player in the band or you're the other guitar player. Because if you've heard of guitar players calling another musician generous, what they mean by that is that they're giving them room to do stuff, and then they pull back, and you can almost. And that's where the language of the music starts to happen. So David, show somebody like. Take it where you would, I'm not going to try to play in, but take it like you were playing a rhythm and then you were like about to say, all right, I'm cueing you in. Give me an example of what you would do to cue somebody in.
A song that I'm just going to use a riff from a song I wrote like probably 20 years ago now.
Right.
Let me get a clean tone going here, or cleaner tone anyway.
Yep.
This is where I cue you in.
Yep.
So I drop out all the frilly little stuff in the middle
Right.
and give you
Right.
more space.
Yeah. Did you notice that what David did was he left all those little accents that he did in between his chords to give me room to be able to come in. Now, if let's say you were playing, let's say you were doing a 12-bar blues thing where you were going like a if you were doing something like that, you could, then the other person knows they can come in with that, and they can take off.
A lot of times what I find myself doing, Jim, is just literally dialing back the volume on my guitar so it's cleaner. And then I might, so like if I'm playing a normal like blues thing, what I'll look for is like when I'm ready to like let somebody else take over, I'll just which means I'm just getting really uncomplicated. I'm just playing the chord. I might even not play the whole chord, like in this case. I've got a root, a fifth, and a seventh.
Right.
And that's all you need. And then a lot of times, actually, that's not even the root. That's the root, fifth, third. I get the 7 in there too, but
yeah, I typically throw the 7 in.
But like the other part of it is I'll use other comping techniques. Like I'll dial back and I'll. So it's just chords. I'm now become part of the harmony accompaniment of the band.
Yep.
Like in the back. I'm not getting super accenty with the beats, like more than I normally would. And I'm using some different chord forms to create something that's not boring, but is very much part of the harmonic context.
Absolutely. And it leaves space.
So what I did there, just for our listeners, is like I'm using this chord is a D7. With that is done, with the slightly unconventional voicing, and then I do this other one, which is a bar at it's the 7th fret with your middle finger on the high E string, at the 8th fret, and that's also a D7 chord. So it's all different voicings of D7, and then I'll play like when I get to the E chord, I'll do the same. You could do the same relationship for the E chord, starting at the 7th fret, and
Yeah, typically what I'll do is I'll throw in an E instead of going straight for the 7th fret. I'll go for the 4th fret, Yeah. 7th fret, and then possibly even throw in a 3-note thing here at the 13th fret. Well, 12th fret, I guess, but it's actually starting on the 13th.
Right.
Like that.
So you could they're just different voicings of the same chord, and you can use that to create a harmonic context that's different and not static.
And it sounds like a melody, even though you're playing the exact same thing.
It's really a vamp and nothing less.
Exactly.
And you can apply that. So I'm using it in the blues context here, but you can apply that ad infinitum to any style of music you're playing, and you can actually basically arpeggiate chords. Like where you're outlining different root notes and stuff, and you can get really nuts with it and do chord melody and all that kind of stuff too. But
yeah, I think next time we should talk a little bit about arpeggios, because I think what people think is when they're like, oh, well, when I play an arpeggio, don't I have to play like 55 notes? So it's like, no, an arpeggio can be 3 notes. But as David is showing,
I'm playing. Hey, hang on, I gotta do this right.
Yeah. Now,
those are all arpeggios.
Exactly.
Well, not all of it, but most of it.
Most of it, yeah. I was going to say most of that is arpeggios, and if you listen closely to it, if you loop that, there's a repeated pattern that moves across chords. So what he's really doing is playing 3 or 4 notes of a chord.
Yeah,
yep.
I mean...
So he's moving the chord
all the way up,
right?
Then down, then all the way, and I move down a half step, our whole step, depending on what the next note in the scale is, and just sweep through the chords.
Exactly.
But no, you don't have. I mean, arpeggios could be anything.
Right.
It could be literally. You can
Yeah. One of the most famous
with a dyad in the front, or
that's.
All right, I won't do any more. I promise.
All right, I got one for you. Hold on. All right, I got one for you. The probably one of the most famous arpeggios, as far as something that people will play when they're playing around, is
Yeah. And technically, that's not an arpeggio. That's arpeggiated accompaniment.
Yes,
because a true arpeggio doesn't have any other notes ringing at the same time.
Right.
Which is why I would have
only allowed one to ring at a time.
That's why my sweep stuff sucks here, because I really wasn't prepared to do it, and I wasn't on the pick right. But typically, you would not want your notes to ring together. So
right.
That's a way better arpeggio than what I was playing before.
But the point is, and we'll get deeper into that next time, because we'll talk about if you're playing in a major key or a minor key, and how you would move that up or up through because let's say I was going to go from a G to a C, which is the one. Yeah. Let's say I was going but I start on D. Let's say I was playing 1-4-5. A prime example of that is the song, right? And so I'm not used to sitting in my lap, but when you're doing that song, it starts on D, goes to C, right, and then goes to G, and yet that's the one. So it's actually a 5-4-1 song instead of a 1-4-5.
And the funny part is, I think if you actually notated that out, it would probably start with the G on the 1. But the thing is, there would be a measure of stuff before the first bar, like a lead in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that it's one of those things where, when you look at jazz, typically jazz is 6-2, right? And
or 2-5-1
or 2-5-1.
Yeah.
So you're not always playing the thing, and of course, talking about majors and minors. Have notice that 1-4-5. The reason that rock and blues love 1-4-5 is. You have a choice of majors, minors, sevenths. You can pretty much play around with anything you want.
And the other thing, the real reason I think that it happened was because then you didn't have to know any other chord voicings to play it.
That's true.
Which is why, so if you knew your major chord voicings, then you were good. You could pull out any song that way.
Also, if you know your guitar, if you know how to actually play all the chords in your guitar, you don't have to move positions. If you know the caged system at all, even basically,
anyway.
What's that?
You don't have to move positions anyway.
You don't have to move positions. You can always play in one spot. A lot of people think that if they're playing a bar chord of a G, and then they play a bar chord of a C, they're like, yeah, but I can't play D here. You know what I mean? So it's one of those things where, I got to learn how to play that. Where do I find that position where I can play all of them? That's and again, that note gets into knowing it. I think that a lot of people do that. I tended to do it on a bass a lot because I was a vertical player versus a horizontal player a lot. So I would play a 5-string, and with a 5-string, I never had to move my hand anywhere.
Well, see, that's the thing. I'm a way more horizontal oriented player on guitar.
You play a lot more horizontally
than I am vertical, and it's funny because we were talking earlier on the show about cage positions in the cage system and all that, and I don't need them because I know where all the damn notes are at in the scales. Because I'm so used to doing it. Exactly. I mean, I could literally do that. I walk up the A minor scale, do it, on one string. Like,
yep. Oh yeah. I practice that all the time. Believe it or not, major scale, minor scale, up and down the string, each string, and I go from the open string. Then I pick a note, and then I try to do this, and then here, and then here, and then here, and then here, so that those who aren't looking, I'll start in the first fret or open fret actually. Open string, and then I'll say, okay, now I gotta do the same thing in the E scale, but I'm gonna start at the second fret and then move it up, and then at the so and then of course you got to descend. But anyway, what I wanted to talk to is we'll talk more about arpeggios next time because we're probably going long and we're
Well, no, we're not going long, but I think we probably should.
But we're supposed to be talking about groove. Yeah.
Yeah. We're definitely not we're kind of off the beaten path there.
Right.
Main thing is I want to bring it back if you have something you want to talk about first.
No, that's what I was going to say. The important thing is like what we were talking about is finding a place where you can play a chord that works with the other musicians or whether you got a pianist or another guitar player.
I wanted to hit on one more thing before we restricted to chords. Groove exists regardless of whether you're playing a melody line or your vamp, like you're doing your comping. I think a classic example, at least for an arrangement that I play a lot, is and that's of course Superstition, but played in the wrong key, of course. But
that's all right. Now Stevie Wonder won't sue us.
It's got that like swinging rhythmic feel that's not a straight like anything, and it's bouncy, and you can feel that bounce when you play it. Like you almost feel like your pick's bouncing against the strings.
Yeah, another prime example is that. Again, you want to get that because the bass player is playing on this, and then they play like a. That's really the bass line.
Yeah.
So you've got to be with that, but you've got to also add that, and you've got to have that timing. Because if you don't, then you throw everybody. Those single note lines. When I would play, what the heck's the Golden Earring tune? Driving all night, my hand went on the wheel. I'm playing that, or I could slide into it. If I'm not in the groove with them,
I think that's more of a phrasing thing than like true rhythmic accompaniment, though.
Well, a phrase has to groove.
Yeah, I mean, I get it. I mean, I get the argument, and I feel like that's almost so not locked with the rhythm, though. You got to hit the chord and everything, but it's not like the rhythm of the band is not going to fall apart because they're driving it and you're over the top of it. You know what I mean? Like if you're sitting on top, that's where I wanted to say, like, when I think of the groove, I'm thinking specifically of the harmonic bed content that lies underneath the melody lines. And that Golden Earring song is like one of those things where even the guitar playing is like it's almost ethereal and floats over the groove. And that's where I think a lot of guitar players think that guitar really sits. But really it can be either or it can be both. And
that's what I think you could do that in the same phrase. That was what I was going to get at.
Oh, okay.
So when I play it, the A chord has to hit directly on time.
Right.
Then I have like this free flowing, right?
Yeah.
But that second time I hit the B chord has got to be with them. Because, again, how do I say this? I've seen so many lead players. It's like, okay, take a solo, and then they're just like, and then they'll play the right notes.
Which the funny thing is, they're the harmonic bed at that point.
Right.
Because
And
they're not floating over it.
Right.
And that's something I do very well. I can float over anything, you know. I can float like a butterfly and sting like a bee. You know?
Yeah, but you'll get a guy who throws this in without any rhythm.
Yeah.
Notice how it was. Yeah. And then all of a sudden,
What the hell is that?
Right.
That was Vernon Reid right there.
and it's like, okay, but and it's okay to use that.
Sure,
you know?
sure.
I'll typically
it's a tool. You should have it in your toolbox.
Right.
But it's
I'll
not
typically
necessary. Yeah, it sounds. So if you're doing only that, it just sounds like every time you take a solo or something, you're doing pure chaos.
Right. And I've noticed that there's a lot of people that will do that, and they'll do. But what I was going to get at is that's something I'll do to indicate to somebody. Guess what? I'm about to come out of the solo now.
Yeah.
And now it's your turn. You go.
I always look and nod.
I'll use this one.
I'm done.
I'm out.
If I hit the root note on the low E string, that's a pretty good damn signal that it's time for somebody else to do something. You know, and I've done that before where like I hit it and then they all keep playing and I just look around and I'm like, okay, so I'll keep going for a minute and I'll do it again. And then I'm like, what the fuck? Like
you'll be like, hello.
Yeah. I'm like literally looking around. I usually when I do is I turn around the drummer and I'm like, what the hell, man? Like, like what the hell?
Yeah, so
you're not following along. You're not listening to what I'm doing, you know.
And those are accents. When you're playing a solo, I think that one of the things that I'll hear when I hear a bad shredder versus a good shredder is a good.
Are there any good shredders? Really?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I know we've had an episode about that. It's called Shred Sucks.
Yeah, exactly. And when I hear a good shredder, I hear someone who can. It's like a vocalist. They know how to. I've heard crappy vocalists too. Who are karaoke kings and queens who go out there and they're performing without any feel and any the groove has got to be there. And as the lead guitar player, when you take a solo, you are the vocalist at that point.
Yeah, you better have your shit together and you better know what you're doing. I mean, that's why I felt like my last experience playing live was so bad, but apparently I've been told by various people that it was not bad. But, you know, just like you said, like you want more vocal quality. And so that's where we get into like separating yourself from the groove. Like, how do you stand above it? And that's one of the things we're talking about. So phrasing is a big component of that. Being able to play notes that aren't in time, being able to play notes that are in time, and knowing when and where to choose them. And then like how to structure a solo so that it flows properly, how to begin and end it. And how to make sure that the band like you're playing with knows what you're doing. Obviously, if it's composed music, if you made an arrangement, everybody knows. Or if you're playing somebody else's music, like they kind of know, like, okay, so there's 8 bars of this.
Yep.
But if you're playing with a band you've never played with before, how do you do that? Like one of the ways you could do it, use musical context and clues. If the band's good enough, they heard you. Hopefully they'll catch on. Yep. You can always turn around and signal people. Which a lot of times what I'll do is I'll hit my volume knob and I'll turn around and make sure everybody sees me rolling back my volume knob to make it like super obvious. Or I'll hit a chord at the end of it and maybe like do a little chordal texture thing, but make sure that everybody knows like that's where we're headed.
Right. And it depends on the structure of a song. If a song is structured, it's a lot easier to find that place because somebody will go, okay, I know the guitar player is going to play a solo for 8 bars. Doesn't matter what they play, it's going to go for 8 bars. Where if you're in a band where you're free-falling or free-forming your music, then it's a lot harder to say when is the guitar player coming out or when is the pianist going to end a solo.
Right.
You know,
you guys really have to get a lot of those. So the jam bands, a lot of them use their ears more often than not. I think there's some musical clues that they use, but I also see them doing things like nodding their head to people.
Right.
And if you think that Fish or any of those other bands that are doing that are getting by on musical cues alone, you're sadly mistaken.
They
have a signal system worked out. It may even be like, I'll turn on this pedal, and when I do that, that's,
Right.
And
it may be as simple as, hey, when I turn down, that's when you're coming, that's when we're done with whatever it is that I'm doing.
Right. And they usually chart out, so like even the best jam bands usually chart out how they're going to do a jam. So it's like, okay, so I'm going to start out, I'll have this heavy passage, and then like I'll go into this quieter thing, and then we'll half time it. And then, so like they know kind of ahead of time how the song is supposed to be performed, but they might go, so this part is free, meaning this is completely open to like how we all feel. And that's another thing, but most of it's a lot more charted out than you think it is.
Yep. I would definitely have to agree with that. Did I ever tell you I opened for, I don't want to say I opened for Phish. We played on the same stage as Phish, like the next thing. What happened was, it was funny because Phish had played already. So I don't want to say they opened for us, but they had played there, and their crowd was still hanging around. They had played sitting on toilet seats. I'm not sure what that tour was about, but there were 5 toilet seats on the stage.
Maybe they're trying to say that, like,
borrowed
this is how
like a Home Depot or something.
This is how we really feel about our music, man.
Yeah, it's all shit.
We sit on toilet seats and take shits while we play.
My understanding is, I'm not a Phish fan. I'm not a Troy Anastasio fan. I don't get it. It feels relatively random to me. But that said, I did appreciate the fact they had a little bit of humility and a little bit of fun with their own music playing on toilet seats.
They're decent players. I just don't. Yeah. I don't get much from their music in the same way that I don't get much from Grateful Dead's music.
Right.
The one jam band I really, really liked and have always liked was Allman Brothers, but I think it's because that's so Southern rock.
Yeah.
That and a lot of the songs I like are the bigger like guitar pieces.
I think also the Allman Brothers, and this is a great kind of coming back to another thing we talked about earlier. The Allman Brothers were so blues based. There was so much in there that came from blues, but it also came from very raw jazz structure.
Actually, the funny thing is, none of the guys really had a huge jazz context.
Nope.
It was bluegrass. It came from bluegrass.
Yep.
And because they were interested in jazz and blues, like they knew how to do the timing stuff, so it was really easy to port it over.
Right. I mean, most people know that it was Duane Allman doing the solo on what was it, the Eric Clapton tune.
I think it's on the end of it though. I think he did the slide part.
The slide part, right.
Yeah, which are what make the song. So
yeah, oh yeah, that whole outro is the reason that the song is worth listening to at the end.
Yeah.
What the heck was the name of that song?
Layla.
Thank you. I knew it was starting with an L, and I was stuck on Lorraine.
I thought you'd already said it. I was like,
no.
Wait a minute.
But I think when I first saw it, I'm not a huge fan of the Allman Brothers records. I loved seeing them live. I loved watching them live, and listening to the live at Fillmore.
40 minutes of one song.
Yep, live at the Fillmore, I think. And there were 2 reasons that I loved seeing them live. Number one, obviously, was just incredible talent all the way around. But number 2, and probably the biggest reason, was that they could turn around. I had no idea where they were in a song. I was just like grooving along, my head bobbing back and forth, and all of a sudden, everybody would break, beep, 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 bing, and they went to another part of the song.
Yeah, and you're like, what?
That, and I was like,
how did they know that?
How did you know?
And at that time, you're probably sitting there thinking, "Oh, they just know each other so well," because like you probably weren't immersed in music the way you are now. Where it's like,
right.
No, he put his hand in his back pocket, and then everybody knew that was like, all right, 2 more bars, like, and that's literally what it is. And nowadays, it's even more ridiculous than that because we have click tracks,
right?
That people use live, so they could say, all right, we're going to have 48 bars of improv, and then we're gonna do a count off, and in the click track, it's literally 48 bars of click, 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 and then all of a sudden it goes 3, 2, 1, and everybody hits, and that's it. Classic example, the guy that makes me think of it, James Brown. All that stuff where he'd have the band hit, and I'm using the air quotes. Where he'd be like, hit me, and everybody would hit the right notes because that was the symbol.
That was fully rehearsed and staged so well. I mean, when you hear it, can I take it to the bridge? Can I take it to the bridge? Can I take it to the bridge?
Yeah, and then you're like, oh, what? It doesn't even register when you listen to it. He's telling the band, we're about to start the bridge.
And what was funny is it felt like you would say it like 87 times.
Yeah,
say it like
dude.
times.
Like there is a song. There's I think a video on YouTube. It may have been on YouTube. It may have been on another service where he says it, and it's like 19 times before they start the bridge. Like,
but he says it. They all know that what he does that one time when he wants to do it, he says, "Can I take it to the bridge? Can I take it?"
Then he's asking
say,
the band.
Now take it to the bridge, and they know that little cue, that minor now take it to the bridge instead of "Can I take it to the bridge?" was when he was saying, take it to the bridge.
The other classic example of signals embedded in music like that, man, is Robert Plant on A Whole Lot of Love at the end of it, where he's like, "Are we recording, baby? Keep recording, baby." Like, it's hysterical because you hear it and you're like, it doesn't register because it's so high pitched and so shrill. But if you knew Robert Plant and you were sitting in the next room, you're like, oh, okay, he wants to keep recording and we'll do a fade out. Like, it's perfect.
Another example of that is live Stairway to Heaven when he cues in the drums.
Yeah.
So, he says something about do you remember? And then that's when the drummer knows, okay, I'm supposed to wake up playing this.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. Yeah. But it's the point is that, like, there's a lot more context given in songs than we think, and that, going back to our groove discussion, like, you think about the king of groove really is James Brown. Like, his music was all over the place in terms of groove, and when you listen to it, all of the guys that were involved in that, and the one that comes to mind specifically is Carlos Alomar talking about when he was in that band. And the two guys that also were on guitar were basically telling him, like, we work, the words I believe they used to, or at least he said in interviews, is, we work really hard to make this hole. Don't fill it up. Right. Like, think about it. That's exactly what they're telling him, is like, look, you've got to figure out where you fit in this groove and do not try to be the star. Yeah. Even though Carlos Alomar is definitely the guy that could sit there and just go, blah, 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 all over the place. And he did, and got fired for it. Like, that was not his job. His job was to know how to fit the song well and to be harmonic accompaniment. And I think that's what the takeaway from this conversation is. Groove is about rhythm, but it is also about being able to be in the background. Right. And support the rhythmic motif that's going on in that rhythmic bed, that harmonic content. And every song has it. Whether you want to believe it or not, every song has a rhythmic bed. Even Iron Maiden, where they have 3 freaking guitar leads going on at once, and actually 4, because half the time Steve Harris is involved. There's still this rhythmic bed going on because of the way the arrangement's designed and the way that the drummer is orchestrating things.
Well, I want to say this about that. If you listen to most music, not even pop music, most music, you're going to have the guitar player is going to play rhythm guitar more than lead, and that's just a given. So anyone who thinks that, I can just sit down and I can play lead guitar all the way through is sadly mistaken. The most important thing that you can do.
I've done that before.
And there is music.
It's lame. It's boring too.
And most people, even Steve Vai will tell you that you listen to his stuff, and because it's guitar centric, and I said this earlier, the guitar then becomes the vocal. You've still got rhythm parts that he's laid down that are crucial, and that other guitar player is playing rhythm all night long.
Yeah. And look at him. Like, he takes 3 guys out to accompany him on tour, and that's partially because he knows that at least certain songs that he does require multiple guitars to perform the harmonic backup to what he's going to do, which is to provide a lead. And of course, that's a dynamic function too, because even in his band, like, he knows that he wants to feature the other players, and he does. He'll back off and let somebody else take the limelight for a bit.
Right.
So, anyway, we are hitting our 2-hour mark right here. And we might be a little short in 2 hours. I hope everybody enjoyed the fact that we actually brought guitars in. If you liked it, definitely comment in the group.
Yep.
I don't remember if I mentioned this at the beginning of the episode, but if you've gotten this far, you've probably heard the secret phrase.
Yes. If you didn't hear it, go back.
Yeah, the secret word, combine it with what's on over at the Great Lake Guitar Pickups Facebook page, and send us that email. I'm going to give you 1 week from Tuesday, which will be, I need to look at the calendar here.
The 13th or the 12th?
I believe it's the 12th. Monday is the 11th.
You're right.
Yeah, so
12th.
You'll have 1 week from the 12th to get your submissions in, and then we're going to have the drawing, and then the winner will be announced in the Facebook group.
Yep.
And probably on the next show. The following show, because that'll be 2 weeks from today.
Right.
So
I'll do another video with the guitar.
Okay.
Just do a little jam
to drum up support and
to get people.
Tell your friends. I'm serious. Like, we need as many listeners to this show as possible. And even if you're not a quality listen at first, I really feel like if you give us a chance, we do provide content you'll like.
Yeah.
It may not everything you may like, but there may be enough to keep you listening. So,
and we're not, we want to move away. That's the reason we're putting the guitars in here. We're moving away from that gear centric. Oh, here's what's going on with gear. Everybody loves gear and everybody wants to spend money on gear, but
I like to hear gear, damn it.
Yeah. The most important thing is, are you playing it?
Yeah.
So we'd love to see more people playing, and posting, their stuff in the group. Certainly, there's a lot of room for that. And we need to provide you more, with that, because we want to help you move in that direction.
Yeah. Hey guys, I want to, just before we exit here, I want to have everybody, tell Jim that he did a great job on this episode in the group, because he's being a pain in the ass and complaining about, I don't know what I'm going to play.
I do
have a freaking problem.
I do that all the time. I get to a rehearsal and I'll be like, I don't know what to do here. And, so I'll give you guys a little bit of, just a thing that happened to me. So 2 weeks ago, I auditioned for a new band and I got picked up, and they were like, okay, can you play this song? I don't know. I've never played it. Just start playing it. I'll play along. And then, and so, cause we had gone through the 5 or 7 songs, whatever it was they gave me to be ready. And I blew through those. Right. And so they just started going down their set list, and I played everything until we were, out of time.
Sounds like they expect a guitar player who's going to use rehearsal as practice.
But I was like, and we were talking about groove, right? So that the stiffness that I was talking about with the Long Train Running, the guy was playing with us. I said, here, let me intro it, and then you jump in. I wanted to say it nicely, like you were playing that very stiffly.
Dude, stop, please.
Even the drummer and the bass player is his brother, and his drummer is his cousin. This is a family band. I'm coming into, like, it feels like I'm going to West Virginia. I was waiting for them to go ding, 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 ding.
Oh my gosh. They have no coveralls?
Can you squeal like a pig? And,
oh my god.
Yeah. So I was like, but they're all really nice guys. They really are. And they got a female lead singer who's not related to them. I was surprised. And so anyway, I brought in the song the way that I know it, and he immediately was able to jump in and ride the rhythm that I'd created, so that I could play the single note stuff. That thing.
Yeah.
It's nice. I'll tell you though, it's nice not to have to sing, because now I know why guitar players are like, "Woo! I don't have to sing."
Yeah, dude. Yeah.
Because I sing on almost everything I play, and it's like, oh, I can just play a whole song and not have to sing at all.
You mean I can just kind of hang out and like?
How do
guitar,
people do that?
Yeah, like I don't. This song feels weird. Like,
So awesome.
What the hell's going on here?
I've only been in one other band where I was a musician, and
Well, I'm glad to hear
else.
you're stretching out more, Jim, because you're gonna start to experience what it's like to live like me, which is not being
But
told what to do.
I had to be careful because what I found was, and this is what I was talking about earlier, is if you play parts, make sure you leave a hole for the vocalist.
Yeah, because you figured out real quick. You're like, oh shit! Like I just stomped all over that whole arrangement. Like what?
Whoops.
Yeah, when the singer's looking at you, like, what the fuck are you doing? Like,
Yeah. Why did you just do? Would you get out of here? I learned very fast. I only took a couple of notes. I was like, oh, whoops. So, yep. All right.
I've been David.
I've been Jim.
And tonight we were Practical Guitarists.
Woohoo!
Yay.